In a shop, a girl dressed up in elegant clothes while her mother looked on with pride. As expected, the expensive outfit transformed her, light and graceful, almost like an angel. The children around her gathered, admiring her and saying she looked cool, like a real adult. Meanwhile, the girl was lost in thought. If she worked 52 weeks a year, 5 days a week, that would be 260 days. If she wore the outfit every 3 days, that would be about 87 times. Stretching that over 3 years, she realized how much it would cost per wear. Trying it on, she concluded she would have to wear only those clothes for 3 months straight to justify it. Her mother, calling her Minyoung, asked what she was thinking. She believed Minyoung was smart enough to succeed anywhere, but she still felt uneasy. Work life, she explained, was very different from school. Sometimes things happened without reason. No matter what, Minyoung had to remember 3 things. First, always obey your superior without complaint. Second, say what others want to hear, not what you want to say. Third, always smile when making eye contact. 10 years later, Minkyung had followed her mother's advice faithfully. She spoke carefully, controlled her expressions, and with an almost superhuman work ethic, achieved top scores in entrance exams, training evaluations, and competitions. She became the most desirable coworker, won the company's sports competition, took first place in the Golden Belt quiz, and earned the highest customer satisfaction scores. Excelling at everything, she quickly rose on the fast track to promotion, until yesterday. Standing in shock after hearing the word secretary, Minkyung listened as the CEO explained that an official announcement would be made soon. She would be appointed secretary and assistant to T in the trading team. Already working as an assistant, she realized she was being asked to take on an additional role. Thinking back on everything she had endured, she questioned the meaning of this sudden decision. Had she worked like a loyal dog for 10 years only to be demoted? Struggling to control her anger, she asked if she had made any mistakes and pleaded to be told so she could fix them. The CEO assured her there had been none. On the contrary, she had been too good. He explained that even manager Kang had acknowledged how unreasonable the request was. He didn't want to lose someone as capable as her, but after reviewing everything, it seemed she was the only one who could handle the matter involving T. Soon, she would receive an unusual proposal concerning him, connected to Songbikja, an estate surrounded by pine and nut trees, where sunlight filtered through to create a solemn atmosphere. It was a symbolic place in Korea's business world. Mentioning Songbikja, located within the estate of TK Group's leader, Chairman Tian, made it clear. This decision came from the very top. Minkyung understood. This was an all-or-nothing moment, either the greatest opportunity or the biggest crisis of her life. The scene shifted to the airport, where T arrived in casual clothes. As he stepped out, assistant manager Kim Chun greeted him and asked about his flight. T replied with a slight pout that it was fine. Kim Chun thanked him for his hard work on the business trip, but T quietly scoffed. The trip had been nothing more than an excuse. For the first time in years, he had let go of a long-held grudge. For 34 years, he had devoted his life to TK Group, all to become the owner of Songbikja. But after falling victim to a scheme by T-jun, he lost the company's core assets to him. Now, he couldn't help but wonder what he had been living for all this time. With everything turned upside down, he decided to simply enjoy himself. He had already left, leaving only a note behind, much to T-jun's irritation, as he couldn't understand how the company continued to run so smoothly without him. As T got into the car, he instructed Kim Chun to take him to his apartment in Cheongdam-dong. However, Kim Chun informed him that there was a message directing him to go straight to the Strategic Planning Division upon his return. Surprised, T asked if it was from T-jun. He tried to brush it off, saying he was tired and should go to the hospital instead. Just then, his phone rang. Annoyed, he checked the caller ID, T-jun. He immediately hung up, deciding he needed a break, but the phone kept ringing. Frustrated, he snapped, asking who it was and why they kept calling. Kim Chun clarified that it was Assistant Manager Kang from the electronics department. T froze for a moment, recognizing the name. assistant manager Kang Minkyong. He remembered she had joined the company around the same time as him. Kim Chun answered the call first and said she should speak directly with the director before handing the phone over. Feeling uneasy, T asked what was going on. Something about it made him nervous. He picked up, "How can I help?" Minkyong greeted him politely and informed him that starting today, she would be his personal secretary and business assistant. T frowned. Why would a high-ranking assistant manager like her become a secretary? Was this T-Jun's doing? Minkyong calmly suggested he discuss the details with managing director T-Jun. Grinding his teeth, T wondered if T-Jun had lost his mind. Frustrated, he snapped that he didn't need a secretary and told her to pass along that he would be resting. He hung up, assuming that was the end of it. It was. Minkyong turned to T-Jun and informed him that T had hung up. T-Jun simply smirked and told her to proceed as planned. At his apartment, T, half-dressed, let out a sigh of relief, thinking he could finally relax. Then his phone rang again. Annoyed, he picked it up, assuming it was Kim Chun. Kim Chun hesitantly asked if he could come in for a moment. Realizing Kim Chun was at the door, T frowned. "Manager Kang wants to come in." He groaned. "Minkyong, how does she even know where I live?" The phone shifted, and Minkyong formally introduced herself again. Frustrated, T demanded to know how she had gotten his address. Why would someone as busy as deputy director Kang come all the way to his home? Calmly, she replied that she was Kang Minkyong and that, starting today, she would be assisting executive director T as his secretary. Caught off guard, T asked if she was serious. "These orders come from Songbikja," she said. Then, without hesitation, she added, "My apologies, but we are short on time. I will come in now." Panic flashed across T's face. He scrambled to stop her, stumbling as he rushed to the door. "Wait just a second." But it was too late. The door opened. Minkyong stepped inside and greeted him formally, then froze. Standing before her was T, half naked. For a brief moment, she stood completely still, stunned. Then she quickly composed herself, turned, and shut the door. Behind her, T shouted in outrage. A short while later, fully dressed, T stepped out. Minkyong glanced at the time. 15 minutes remaining. Are you ready? I'm not ready at all, he shot back. I haven't even showered, I'm hungry, and I don't have anything to wear. Please don't worry, she replied calmly, calling out to Kim Chun. Kim Chun stepped forward with a suit already prepared. Minkyong explained that his clothes had been dry-cleaned in advance, and that breakfast had also been arranged. I don't eat sandwiches, T snapped. Based on your preferences, she replied. We prepared a ham and cheese sandwich without vegetables, along with an egg sandwich. She continued, explaining that they would review the schedule while moving. Wait a second, T interrupted sharply. Just because you're my secretary doesn't mean you can track me down to my house like this. He gestured around. This is my private space. I live freely here, however I want. Can you even handle that? After a brief pause, Minkyong began. If you feel uncomfortable because I'm a woman. Stop. T suddenly burst into laughter. Are you serious? You think I'm uncomfortable because of that? Unfazed, she nodded slightly. I'm relieved to hear that, sir. Glancing at the time, she added, 10 minutes until departure. There won't be time for a shower. She called for Kim Chun again. As expected, we prepared in advance. She put on gloves, while Kim Chun brought over a bucket and shampoo. Approaching T, she said calmly, You don't need to do anything. Now genuinely alarmed, T shouted, What do you think you're doing? Put that away. Minkyong paused, then stepped back without protest. T stared at her for a moment, struck by her unwavering composure. Letting out a long sigh, he ran a hand through his hair. Fine, give me 5 minutes. He went inside to wash up. As he did, he couldn't help but think about her. Loose hair, dull glasses, a plain two-piece suit. The exact same style for 10 years. Nothing had changed since the day they first met. And yet, she still managed to get on his nerves. A memory surfaced. The announcement of TK Group's 53rd training class. The top trainee had been Kang Minkyong, second place, T. T had spent his entire life preparing to inherit TK Group. Since childhood, he had been called a prodigy, always standing at the top through relentless effort. He had never ranked second. Until her. When the results were announced, the room had erupted in applause. T, barely containing his anger, had fixed his gaze sharply on Minkyong. Back in the present, he finished drying his hair. 5 minutes left, he said. That is correct, Minkyong replied. Looking at her, he frowned. Of all people, why did it have to be her? As he got dressed, he said flatly, I don't like having a close personal secretary. Minkyong stood straight. I will do my best to accommodate you. That's not it, he replied. You're just good at pretending not to understand. He continued, I've worked with people I dislike before, but this won't work. Looking directly at her, he said, Deputy Director Kang Minkyong, I don't like you. For a moment, Minkyong recalled their very first day at the training center. From the moment they were placed in the same group, T had disliked her. Quit while you're ahead, he added. She paused briefly, then spoke calmly. Executive Director, we are already 7 minutes behind schedule. We need to depart now. T blinked, momentarily speechless. Maintaining her composure, she added, Chairman Tian is waiting for you. T let out a quiet sigh of resignation. Accepting the situation, he finished getting dressed and said they should leave. As they walked down the hallway, Minkyong recalled his earlier words, that he didn't like her. But the truth was, she had never liked him either. Ever since the day they first met 10 years ago, the so-called prince of TK Group had always seemed like nothing more than a spoiled brat to her. Still, she swallowed those thoughts. The scene shifted to the car. As they got in, Minkyong stole a glance at T, then quickly looked away, suppressing her thoughts once again. No matter what she thought of him, she couldn't deny one thing. At least in terms of appearance, T was exactly her type. A memory surfaced. A week earlier, Chairman Tian of TK Group had asked if she was the assistant manager Kang Minkyong he had heard about. She confirmed that she was. He said he had heard many things about her from Director T-jun, that she was an excellent employee, and encouraged her to do her best as Executive Director T's assistant. Minkyong humbly replied that she still had much to improve. The chairman then mentioned her siblings, nodding that they were promising young athletes in winter sports. If they took after her, he said, they must be exceptionally talented. Since TK Group supported gifted athletes, he implied that this could work in her favor. Recalling T-jun's words about an interesting offer, Minkyong realized this was what he had meant. After leaving the mansion that day, she felt drained. The chairman's gaze had been intense, like a tiger watching its prey. Even his encouragement carried a sharp edge. Still, she reassured herself. She had done well so far. And if this opportunity meant her siblings could focus fully on their training without worrying about money, then it was worth it. Just then, she received a call from her younger brother, Min-hwan. She answered, and her brothers excitedly cheered on the other end. They told her they were celebrating a sportsmanship event and had thrown a big party. Minkyong smiled and told them to enjoy themselves. As she spoke, tears quietly slipped down her face. As long as they were happy, that was enough for her. Back in the present, sitting in the car, she reflected on the offer. Understanding its weight, she pushed aside her hesitation and focused on her responsibilities for her family's sake. With quiet determination, she began her first day as T's secretary. At the mansion, T sat beside his grandfather, gently massaging his shoulders. He pointed to the cake on the table, mentioning that it reminded him of one he had bought in Austria when he was younger. Then he asked about his grandfather's health. Nothing has changed, the chairman replied. Minkyong observed the interaction carefully. Chairman Tian seemed completely different from the last time she had seen him. It was hard to believe that this gentle, almost warm figure was the same imposing man from before. T suggested they go on a trip together sometime, but the chairman firmly declined, saying he preferred staying at home. It was clear T was the only person who could make him appear this gentle. Then the chairman turned his attention to Minkyong. "Are you performing your duties properly?" Maintaining her composure, she answered confidently that although it was her first day, she was adjusting quickly. Internally, however, she couldn't shake the feeling that his gaze was piercing straight through her. He pointed out that she had arrived slightly late. "I will correct that," she replied. Her hands trembled slightly. From the side, T noticed. This wasn't like her at all. The always composed Minkyong now seemed visibly shaken. The chairman expressed his high expectations. "I am honored," she replied. "I hope you do not disappoint me. I will do my best to meet your expectations." T watched her closely and realized she was genuinely afraid. The chairman then turned to T and instructed him to visit Songbikja, make an appearance, and deliver a product briefing. Looking back at Minkyong, he asked if she had prepared the necessary documents. "Yes, I have," she answered. He emphasized that T was the core of TK Group and that only the best personnel should assist him. T agreed lightly. There's no one quite like Assistant Manager Kang. Then, glancing at his grandfather, he added, "I also think highly of her." Minkyong felt a sudden sense of unease. She had no idea what he was about to say next. Then T continued, almost casually, "She can enter and leave my house freely, like a personal attendant." Minkyong's heart dropped. "Please stop talking." Panicking internally, she clutched his sleeve, her expression tense, silently begging him to stop. If this went any further, she might get fired on her very first day. T noticed her reaction and tried to correct himself, but Minkyong, eyes beginning to well with tears, shook her head slightly, urging him not to continue. The chairman, noticing the exchange, told T to go on. T paused, then smiled. "Actually," he said smoothly, "I'm simply grateful to have Assistant Manager Kang as my secretary." That night, Minkyong returned home completely exhausted. It felt less like physical fatigue and more like her mind had been stretched to its limit. Unlocking the door, she thought about taking a shower and going straight to bed. But the moment she stepped inside, her two younger brothers rushed her, jumping on her and complaining about how late she was. They had been waiting for her, preparing a surprise celebration. Her roommate, Leisha, greeted her warmly, saying she must have had a long day. Then she asked why Minkyong was so late and whether she had eaten. Still confused, Minkyong looked around. "What's going on?" Zhe smiled and began to explain that she had prepared a surprise party after hearing the good news from the twins. Minkyong laughed, a little overwhelmed, and Zhe told her to freshen up while she finished cooking. Watching the lively, chaotic scene created by her brothers and Zhe, Minkyong felt both stressed and deeply touched. People often said it took a whole community to raise children, and she finally understood what that meant. After taking a shower, she felt refreshed. Zhe peeked in and asked if she was done, adding that someone would be arriving soon and they should all eat together. Minkyong asked if it was Hyun-woo, and just then the doorbell rang. Zhe smiled. That must be him. She went to greet him, asking when he had returned to Korea. He replied that traffic had been heavy on the way. Minkyong stepped into the hallway as the guest entered. "It's been a while," he said warmly. "Why didn't you tell me you were back?" she asked. Hyun-woo laughed. "You haven't changed at all." Embarrassed, Minkyong teased, "Are you just showing off that t-shirt?" He grinned, pointing out that it featured her favorite cartoon character. Their families had grown up in the same neighborhood, so they had naturally become close. Since he had graduated earlier and often looked after her, Hyun-woo had become like a reliable older brother, especially when she entered university at a young age. As they sat down with drinks, Zhe brought up how Minkyong had never really drunk alcohol before, always claiming she was missing out on life's pleasures. Minkyong shrugged. "It's not a big deal if I don't drink, but today, maybe just one glass." Zhe cheered, congratulating the twins on their TK sponsorship and Hyun-woo on being scouted. One of the twins asked if being recruited by M and P law firm was really that impressive, and whether he was staying in Korea now. Hyun-woo nodded. He had been assigned to handle a trading-related case and would be staying. He then asked Minkong which team she had joined. I started in the trading team today, she replied. Zhou immediately cut in, exposing her. You mean as a secretary? Hyun-woo looked surprised. You're working as a secretary. Zhe smirked, clearly enjoying herself. So, what's it like working so closely with T? Minkong gave a dry look. Do I really need to say it? Why do you look so miserable? Zhe teased. He's the only grandson of TK Group's chairman, one of the biggest chaebol heirs in the country. He's been famous since he was a kid, handsome, elegant, basically an idol. She continued, describing how T had grown up under constant media attention, with paparazzi following him everywhere. Maybe that was why, once he became an adult, he disappeared from the public eye. Now, only rumors about his looks circulated. Zhe nudged Minkong. Don't tell me you feel nothing working next to someone like that. People would trade photo cards of him, you know. Being his personal assistant is basically a fast track to promotion. I'd be lucky just not to get fired, Minkong replied flatly. Everyone paused. What do you mean? Zhe asked. Minkong hesitated before admitting. The executive director doesn't seem to like me. They all reacted in surprise. Why? Hyun-woo asked. We joined around the same time, she explained. But we've never really spoken. I think he's disliked me since the training center. After a pause, she added honestly, to be fair, I don't like him either, but now we're stuck working together. Hyun-woo sighed. That must be stressful, being around someone you don't get along with all day. Was today hard? It was, she admitted, but I was compensated for it. As he stood behind her and gently massaged her shoulders, he said, Money is important, but so is your health. You've always worked too hard. Minkong smiled faintly. I'll be fine. You're always so kind to me. I wish my boss was even half as nice. At that moment, her phone buzzed. Message after message from T. Organize the schedule. Send it over. Prepare materials for the client meeting. Be at the office by 7:00. Minkong froze. He could at least act like half a decent human being. The next morning. Good morning, sir, she greeted. T glanced at his watch. You're 30 minutes late. Annoyed, she replied. I arrived on time. The entrance password was changed. Why would it need to be changed? He asked. I adjusted for the delay so it wouldn't affect the workflow, she said calmly, though internally she was fuming. You changed it yourself. T simply sighed and told her to proceed with her work as he walked off. When will you be ready for today's briefing? She asked. I just woke up, he replied lazily. I expected that, she said, holding out a cup, so I brought you coffee. I only drink Kenyan coffee, he said. Blended a specific way, rich and heavy, pour that down the drain. Her eye twitched slightly. Understood. As she tried to continue discussing the schedule, he waved her off. The schedule's canceled. I'm resting. Her hands trembled with anger. Director Taejun is waiting, she said firmly. There was a meeting, he replied casually. Then I shouldn't have woken up so early. Cancel it. Minkong clenched her jaw. It's only my second day. He looked at her. Do you have something to say? Holding back everything, she replied. I'd like to make a request. For the first time in 10 years, her patience was being tested. Switching to business, she began her report. TK Electronics, office tower reconstruction will take time, but TK Trading's internal restructuring has progressed. The next report will cover trade construction, Superior Resorts, and the TK Fashion Division. T listened, then commented, You saved fashion for last. Is that the worst? He leaned back. TK Fashion, the foundation of the group, is now its biggest failure. So why do they keep assigning me businesses like that? He scoffed. How am I supposed to fix something that's already falling apart? T scoffed, mentioning the rumors that the division might be sold. Despite all his hard work, T-Jun had taken the profitable parts and dumped the struggling ones on him. Maybe I should just quit, he muttered. Minkyung watched him quietly, thinking that he truly had no intention of working. Seeing his laid-back attitude, she wondered how she was supposed to manage this situation. What had happened to the driven T from the training center? Back then, he had been just as sharp, though always cold toward her. Looking at him now, she couldn't help but think his nickname, the Crown Prince, suited him perfectly. Assistant Manager Kang. His voice snapped her out of her thoughts. What were you thinking just now? He asked. She hesitated, trying to compose herself. Control your expression, she reminded herself. There's no need to deny it, T said. What's someone like you, who's always performed so well, going to do now that you're on my team? There's no issue, she replied calmly. It's an honor to work under you, Executive Director. T stood and stepped closer. Your lips are dry, and you're still lying. Then he turned and walked away. Stop doing that. Left alone, Minkyung paused, feeling a wave of embarrassment. Am I going to be okay? A memory surfaced. 10 years ago, at the welcoming ceremony for TK Group's 53rd batch of recruits, the hall had been filled with excitement. Everyone knew the spotlight would fall on the top-ranked trainee, Kang Minkyung. The chairman had specifically instructed T to observe her closely and determine whether she was truly a pillar of the company or simply someone clever on the surface. Those had been his exact words. At the event, T had glanced at her briefly, but found himself more distracted by the whispers surrounding him. That's the chairman's grandson. A third-generation chaebol, he has everything. And he's good-looking too. T smiled faintly, aware of the attention. He had long grown used to it, especially from people who couldn't even meet his eyes. He didn't enjoy it. If anything, it irritated him. Taking a sip of his drink, he savored the brief moment of quiet, knowing how exhausting it was to maintain his image all day. Then, footsteps approached. Minkyung. She looked straight at him. Unlike everyone else, she didn't avoid his gaze. For some reason, that made him uneasy. Back in the present, T opened his eyes, surprised by the vividness of the memory. Executive Director. Minkyung's voice came from outside. Before he could respond, she entered. I brought documents that require your approval. He frowned. Why are you coming in before I answer? But as he looked at her, he paused. For a split second, she resembled the version of her from his memory. You were asleep, she said calmly. I couldn't wait any longer. She placed the documents on the table. This is the report for the resort project. T dismissed it at first. Why make such a big deal over something simple? But as he skimmed through it, he paused. It was exceptionally well organized. Clear, concise, easy to follow. He tossed it aside casually. Don't overwork yourself. It won't change anything. No one will acknowledge it, and the company won't collapse without you. Then he looked at her. Do you disagree? No, she said firmly. I don't. She continued. Executive Director T is essential to the trading division. No one in the past 10 years has failed to recognize your dedication to TK Group. She bowed her head slightly. I'm grateful to work under someone so capable. T turned away. You can go. I'll review it later. Yes, sir, she replied. Please let me know if any revisions are needed. With that, she left. Elsewhere, T-Jun smiled as he saw T. It's been a while since I've seen you actually working, he remarked. Didn't you say you wouldn't work? He added. T shrugged. That wasn't me, it was Minkyung. T-Jun raised a brow. I knew assigning her as your secretary was the right decision. Unimpressed, T asked, what excuse did you use to transfer her? Did you find some kind of weakness? You should already know, T-Jun replied with a smirk. He pointed out that T had been away, avoiding work overseas, so it only made sense to assign someone capable to fill the gap. T thought for a moment. Minkyong's background came to mind. Her parents ran a modest restaurant, and her twin brothers were competitive athletes. Financial pressure must have been constant. If the order had come from Songbikja, she probably hadn't been in a position to refuse. His grip tightened slightly around his glass. T-jun noticed. She's doing well in her role. There's nothing wrong with her performance. Then he asked, "Are you concerned about her?" T scoffed. Of course not. But the memory of her grabbing his arm, her eyes filled with urgency, lingered in his mind. It felt unfamiliar. Unsettling. He brushed it off. It's nothing. Still, the feeling didn't completely fade. On a warm afternoon, T was finally relaxing with a cup of coffee when footsteps. Vast. Before he could react, Minkong burst in. "Executive Director, are you resting? We need to begin the afternoon briefing." "Wait," he started, startled. But she was already going through the schedule. Later, sitting in the car, T sighed to Kim Chun. "My life has turned into a thriller. Every time I hear footsteps, my heart starts racing." Kim Chun replied calmly. "Assistant Manager Kang is very passionate." "The car is the only place I can relax," T muttered. Just then, his phone rang. He glanced at it and froze. "Minkyong." "Don't answer it," he whispered urgently. But Kim Chun had already picked up. "This is Kim Chun speaking. How can I help you?" T gestured frantically, signaling him not to reveal his location. On the other end, Minkong said coolly, "I can hear the executive director." She continued, "There are no scheduled tasks that require him to be outside right now." T tried to respond, "I have something to do." "Do you really believe there's anything I'm unaware of?" she replied. She reminded him of the workload waiting for him and firmly told him to return. "I'm busy," he muttered weakly. "That's fine," she said. "I'll wait." Click. Back at home later, Minkyong groaned in frustration. It was already past working hours, and she was exhausted. She tried to comfort her, acknowledging how hard she had been working. Just then, the doorbell rang. "Hyun-woo," she guessed, opening the door. He stepped in, and Minkong looked surprised. "You came straight after work." "I couldn't wait," he said with a smile. She teased that he must have come for the food Minkyong's mother had sent. He admitted it with a laugh. Delighted, Minkong offered to prepare a large portion, but he quickly stopped her. "Just a little is fine." "There's plenty," she insisted. "Please enjoy it." As they settled in, she commented on how busy both of them seemed lately. Hyun-woo nodded and gently reminded Minkong not to overwork herself. Suddenly remembering something, Hyun-woo turned to Zhe. "Don't you have a blind date tomorrow?" Zhe froze. "How do you know about that?" He shrugged casually. "The guy is the son of the director at J Hospital, the one we visited. He was actually my classmate in elementary school." Zhe's eyes widened in shock. "He messaged me 3 days ago," Hyun-woo continued. "He said he reached out to you, but your replies were a bit blunt. He thought he might have done something wrong." "I wasn't being cold," Zhe protested. "What exactly did he say?" "He just asked about your preferences," Hyun-woo explained. "So I told him you like the French restaurant at M Hotel." "Is that all?" she asked cautiously. "Pretty much," he said. "I also mentioned you're the cute and stylish type." "Cute and stylish," Minkong muttered under her breath, incredulous. Flustered, Zhe shot back, "I am cute." Then, embarrassed, she pushed Hyun-woo toward the door. "Go already, you'll be late." Laughing, he waved as he left. "Tell your mother thanks for the food." After the door closed, Minkong turned to Zhe, visibly distressed. "What am I supposed to do?" "Just stay calm," Zhe said, trying to reassure her. 3 days earlier, Zhe had begged Minkong to go on the blind date in her place. "It's at the M Hotel French restaurant," she insisted. "It's expensive and the atmosphere is amazing." Ming-kyung frowned. Since when is French food your favorite? Just this once, Je pleaded. Then, with an exaggeratedly cute expression, she reminded Ming-kyung of the concert tickets she had managed to get for her favorite group, their last full group concert before some members enlisted in the military. If I miss it, I might never see them all together again. Desperate, Je clung to her dramatically and made a bold promise. If you help me this time, I won't ask you to do any housework for 6 months. I'll cook, clean, do everything. Ming-kyung sighed. You don't have to go that far. But Je refused to back down. In the end, Ming-kyung relented. Fine, just 1 hour. And that was how it started. Meanwhile, Je, an 8-year veteran fashion magazine editor who believed clothing was one of humanity's greatest inventions, took charge. Standing before Ming-kyung, who knew almost nothing about fashion, she declared her mission: transform her completely. How am I supposed to pretend to be you? Ming-kyung asked. Don't worry, Je said confidently. Opening her wardrobe, she smiled. As a professional, I'll stake my reputation on this. The day of the dinner arrived. Je buzzed with excitement. Are you ready? No, Ming-kyung answered immediately. I meant mentally, Je clarified. Then yes. Good, Je cheered, grabbing her. Let's get changed. As she worked, Je suddenly started speaking as if she were filming. Hello, everyone. Today we have a special guest. Please welcome her. What are you doing? Ming-kyung asked, confused. Pretending to be a makeup vlogger, Je replied casually. It's fun. She hesitated for a moment. Shall we begin? Pulling out products, she introduced them one by one. Emulsion for sensitive skin, illuminator, a radiant finishing product, and a soothing toner. First, skincare. She paused to admire Ming-kyung's complexion. Your skin is actually amazing. What are you talking about? Ming-kyung asked. I'm in character, Je replied. After a long preparation, the makeup was finally complete. Ming-kyung stared at herself in the mirror, genuinely surprised by the transformation. But they weren't done yet. Now the outfit. Later, at the hotel, T commented that it had been a while since he'd had a personal engagement. Kim Chun mentioned that the elementary school alumni gathering was a good opportunity to reconnect after so long. I hope you enjoy it, he said. I will, T replied. Soon after, he received a message directing him to head to the lodge bar, and he made his way there. Meanwhile, Ming-kyung arrived at the hotel, feeling slightly uneasy. She had never been to a place like this before and worried she might be late. Inside, she met her date, Jong-woo, the hospital director's son. I thought you'd be petite, he said, surprised. Since I heard you were the cute type, but you're tall and very beautiful. You're flattering me, she replied politely. As they ate, he asked if she liked the food. Yes, she answered, though internally she felt so uncomfortable she thought she might lose her appetite entirely. Just 10 more minutes, she reminded herself, recalling Je's promise that it would only last an hour. Then Jong-woo spoke again. Shall we go to the rooftop lodge bar? It's famous for its signature night cocktail. The view is amazing. Ming-kyung gave a polite smile. I'm sorry, she said. I have work tomorrow. In the bathroom, Ming-kyung finally felt a sense of relief. The dinner was over. It had been a while since she wore makeup, and it felt heavy on her skin. The contact lenses made her eyes uncomfortable, so she carefully removed them. As she did, she suddenly remembered the mini vacation voucher Zhu had given her for the M Hotel. She wondered if it was refundable. Then again, with work the next day, would she even have time to use it? Stepping outside, she paused. The view was stunning. For a moment, she reflected on the past few exhausting months. When would she ever get a chance like this again? It had also been a long time since she had dressed up like this. Maybe, just for tonight, she thought. She decided to enjoy herself, as someone different. Meanwhile, T sat with his friends, who were urging him to drink. How is it? One of them asked. It's good, he replied casually. Another friend smirked. So, are you seeing anyone these days? T frowned. Why the sudden interest? We barely see you, his friend said. Of course we're curious. How long are you planning to stay single? Another chimed in. T flinched slightly. Is there someone? One of them pressed. Maybe a rich family's daughter. He tried to deflect. Why are you so interested in my personal life? His friend laughed. What could be more interesting than the love life of a third-generation chaebol heir? They raised their glasses, joking about celebrating his future romance. T shook his head, thinking they were far too excited over nothing. Then, he turned his head and froze. Across the room stood Minkyung. For a second, he recognized her instantly. Even the sound of her footsteps felt familiar. Then he frowned. That can't be her. Why would she be here? To test it, he sent her a message. Almost immediately, the woman across the room picked up her phone. He caught a glimpse of the screen and the emoji. He had seen that exact one on Minkyung's phone before. At the same time, he received her reply. She was at the office. But the timing was too perfect. Doubt crept in. Is that really Kang Minkyung? One of his friends nudged him. Why are you staring like that? You've been looking at her for a while. She has a model vibe, another added. Is she your type? Is it love at first sight? Someone joked. T frowned. She just looks like someone I know. Meanwhile, Minkyung looked over the menu. She remembered Jongwoo mentioning that cocktails tasted even better with a night view. Curious, she decided that one drink wouldn't hurt, especially since she was staying the night. As soft piano music filled the air, she took in the scenery, feeling unexpectedly pretty. Then, Minkyung. She turned. Jongwoo. I thought I'd have a drink alone, he said, surprised. Didn't expect to see you again. This was bad. She had already had a drink. As he sat beside her, T, watching from afar, narrowed his eyes. Who is that? Definitely not her boyfriend. Jongwoo ordered a purple rain, a sweet cocktail popular for its grape scent and sunset-like color. I wanted to buy you a drink, he said, smiling. Then he added, I've read your columns. You love cocktails, right? You usually drink at least 3 glasses. Minkyung froze internally. He thought she was Ja. I need to leave, fast. But Jongwoo kept talking enthusiastically, explaining how cocktails were made, mixing alcohol, syrup, juices, and other ingredients. He even talked about density differences depending on sugar and alcohol content. He really studied this. Then his phone rang. It was Hyun-woo. Yes, I'm with her, Jongwoo said casually. Were you worried about your little sister? Are you nearby? I can bring her. Meanwhile, Minkyung's head began to spin. The alcohol was hitting her harder than expected. Hyun-woo is coming. I need to leave before he gets here. She stood up. Excuse me. Jongwoo turned, surprised. Oh, sorry, I didn't notice. It's fine, she said quickly. There's still a drink left, he said. You should finish it slowly. Instead, she downed it in one go. You handle alcohol well, he remarked. Almost instantly, she regretted it. Her vision blurred, dizziness hit. Are you okay? He asked, concerned. I should go, she said unsteadily. Sit down for a moment, he urged. Hyun-woo is on his way. He gently grabbed her arm. I'm fine, she insisted, trying to pull away. Please go ahead. She needed to get to her room. This situation was getting dangerous. But Jongwoo wouldn't let it go. You're clearly drunk, just rest for a bit. I said I'm fine. Then, a voice cut in. Why are you forcing someone who clearly wants to leave? Both of them turned. T. Jongwoo blinked. No, it's a misunderstanding. Is it? T said coldly. Because from where I'm standing, it doesn't look like one. Minkyung, barely conscious, recognized the voice. Executive director. T frowned. Noticing her state, and the way her clothes had shifted. He quickly took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders, muttering under his breath. "Have you lost your mind?" he asked, exasperated, as she mumbled something about briefing materials. He turned sharply to Jongwoo. "How much did she drink?" "I didn't do anything," Jongwoo protested. "We were just on a date." "A date," T repeated, taken aback. Jongwoo frowned. "And who are you to interfere?" T's expression hardened. "Her colleague." Minkhong swayed, trying to explain, but the jacket slipped. T instinctively caught it. For a brief second, he accidentally noticed more than he intended. She casually brushed her hair back and held the jacket out to him. T froze, face flushing bright red. "Are you crazy?" he muttered. "People are watching." He quickly helped her cover up again, grumbling about the situation spiraling out of control. Jongwoo, still confused, said, "She's actually Zhe's closest friend, her roommate." Just then, exactly, Hyun-woo arrived. Jongwoo turned, surprised. Hyun-woo stepped forward, calmly taking in the situation before introducing himself with a polite bow. "I'm the legal advisor for TK Group. I didn't expect to run into you here, executive director." T studied him carefully. Meanwhile, Minkhong, still dazed, noticed Hyun-woo. "Why are you here?" Panic flickered across her face. If he found out the truth, Zhe would be in trouble. Instinctively, she hid behind T, grabbing his hand. T blinked, completely thrown off. "What is going on?" Hyun-woo stepped forward. "She seems very drunk. I'll take her home." T immediately shook his head. "She's my subordinate. I can't hand her over to a stranger." Hyun-woo paused, then replied calmly, "We're childhood friends. You don't need to worry." Turning to Minkhong, he added softly, "I won't tell Zhe, but seriously, you drank too much." Still dazed, she mumbled, "It was maybe 3 glasses and some champagne." T watched her, unsettled. Since when did she act like this? Hyun-woo turned back to T and bowed slightly. "I apologize for the trouble. I'll introduce myself properly another time." Noticing the coat, he tried to remove it, but Tai stopped him, insisting she keep it and return it the next day. The next morning, Tai woke up half-dressed, unsure if the previous night had been real or a dream. At work, Minkhong greeted him as usual, acting completely normal. Tai found it irritating. Everything about her suddenly got on his nerves, though he couldn't explain why. Later, he canceled all his appointments, claiming he wasn't feeling well. Meanwhile, Minkhong struggled with embarrassment, debating whether to apologize or pretend nothing had happened. As Tai rode in the car, his assistant suggested going to the riverside to clear his head. He agreed, though he was surprised to hear Minkyong's name mentioned. Apparently, she ran up to 10 kilometers a day. That thought unexpectedly lingered, frustrating him further. At home, his sister Sujin teased him about attending family meals and joked about his non-existent love life. The conversation shifted when news broke that Tai had been spotted at a hotel bar with an unidentified woman. Photos accompanied the article. Sujin gleefully mocked him, reading aloud that the famously private executive director had been seen with an ordinary woman. Tai was stunned. As she pressed him for answers, he struggled to respond. Sujin brushed off his explanation, saying she'd figure things out herself. Then she boldly guessed that the woman in the article was Kang Minyoung. Ta was stunned and demanded to know how she came to that conclusion. Sujin casually admitted it had only been a guess, but his reaction confirmed it. Frustrated, he groaned. She pointed out that she had never seen him hug a woman before. When he tried to deny it, asking what she meant, she reminded him that he usually reacted strongly even to the slightest physical contact. Amused, Sujin teased him further, saying this might be the start of an office romance. Ta immediately denied it, insisting there was a reasonable explanation. But she ignored his protests and told him his life needed some romance, that he should start dating. Growing irritated, Ta told her to respect his personal space. Still unfazed, Sujin speculated whether he was considering a political marriage, like the elders wanted, to secure his position as TK Group's successor. Exasperated, Ta snapped that it wasn't true. Struggling to explain himself, he insisted he had no thoughts of marriage. Sujin countered that maybe he just didn't want to date just anyone. After a pause, and clearly embarrassed, Ta admitted that if he were to date, it would only be with someone he fell for at first sight. Sujin reacted dramatically, calling him unbelievably pure-hearted. Flustered, Ta yelled at her to show some respect since she was the one who asked. In frustration, he even demanded her allowance card. Laughing, she ignored him, jokingly wishing him luck in his love life before leaving, while thanking him for the allowance. Left alone, Ta slapped his forehead, completely embarrassed. Later, Minyoung bowed deeply, apologizing for the trouble caused by the scandal involving him. Ta acknowledged that an article had been published, but told her she didn't need to apologize so much. He admitted he was partly responsible for getting involved in her personal affairs. However, Minyoung insisted it was her fault as his secretary. She said it was her duty to prevent such incidents and expressed shame for failing to stop the spread of false and malicious reports. Determined, she promised to protect his reputation going forward. Surprised by her resolve, Ta hesitated, then told her it was fine and asked her to stop worrying about it. Changing the subject, he brought up the next meeting. Minyoung confirmed they had an external meeting with a construction company. He agreed to proceed, and she went to arrange the car. In the elevator, Ta found himself deep in thought. He wondered if her deep apology had simply been professionalism. After all, she was just doing her job. He told himself that taking care of Kang Minyoung was merely part of his responsibility. But as the elevator doors opened, his thoughts were interrupted. A burst of camera flashes blinded him. Reporters swarmed, shouting questions and snapping photos. Overwhelmed, nausea hit him hard. Just as he felt like collapsing, he heard Minyoung calling his name. Noticing his pale face and shallow breathing, she suspected a panic attack. Struggling to support him, she questioned why reporters were there. Suddenly, a car pulled up. Assistant Kim Chun urged them inside. As they sped away, Minyoung called out to Ta, asking if he was okay, but he could barely hear her. His breathing worsened, and then he lost consciousness on her lap. Fragments of memory flooded his mind. Voices reminded him that TK Group belonged to him, that all eyes were on him as the successor. He saw flashes of articles, cameras, expectations. His life had always demanded perfection, never letting his guard down. He remembered collapsing once before, during a photo shoot when he was younger. When he regained consciousness, he was in the hospital. Confused, he wondered why it had happened again. Then he remembered Minyoung and turned his head. She was there, asleep on the sofa. He realized she must have stayed the entire time. Even though it was late, she hadn't left for work. As she stirred awake and saw him, she immediately told him to lie back down. He insisted he was fine, but she refused to leave, saying she was responsible for not managing his condition earlier. She explained she had prepared meals for him and wouldn't leave until he ate. Surprised, Ta asked why she was doing all this. He wasn't a child, but she insisted. Then her stomach growled. He chuckled, and she flushed in embarrassment. He told her to eat with him, saying he wouldn't eat unless she did. As they ate, he admitted he once thought she was like a robot, but seeing her like this proved otherwise. Flustered, she tried to correct herself, but he clarified he didn't mean it negatively. After a pause, Tai opened up. He said his first collapse happened at 20. His father had always demanded perfection. Reporters were always watching, waiting for mistakes. Everything he did carried weight. He thought he had gotten used to it, but he hadn't. He collapsed back then, just like now. With a small smile, he told her she didn't need to be so tense all the time. Minyoung quietly reflected, realizing he had endured far more than she thought. Before leaving, she said she would prepare for the morning video meeting and return by 8 a.m. Ta frowned, saying that was too early, but she insisted the meeting couldn't be delayed again. As she was about to leave, he suddenly told her to stay the night. Immediately, he panicked internally, wondering what he had just said. When she asked if he meant it, he quickly denied it and told her to go home. After she left, he sat there, frustrated with himself. The next morning, Minyoung returned and began briefing him as usual. Despite her likely exhaustion, she showed no signs of fatigue, calm and reliable as always. Ta, on the other hand, felt completely unlike himself. Later, Sujin burst into the room with flowers, saying their mother sent them after hearing he collapsed. Ta panicked, his mother knew. Sujin smirked, saying he was in trouble since their mother had even gone to the US to get medicine. Minyoung, watching, thought it must be nice to have a close family. Then Sujin turned to her. She recognized Minyoung from before and praised her for ranking first in the company's recruitment program. Embarrassed, Minyoung downplayed it. Ta cut in, telling Sujin to leave, but she ignored him, dragged him aside, and whispered something. She offered to help him. Suspicious, he asked why he'd need help. Smirking, she threatened to tell Minyoung everything. Before he could react, Sujin invited Minyoung out for coffee, saying the patient should rest. Minyoung agreed. Outside, Sujin said Minyoung must have been surprised by what happened. Minyoung admitted she hadn't expected Ta to collapse, but was relieved he was recovering. Sujin then revealed more. She said Ta had never truly rested in his life. Their father had pushed him to be the perfect successor. Ambitious, but not capable enough, their father had eventually been disowned by their grandfather. Sujin continued explaining that their father had tried to restore his position in TK Group through Ta. In his desperate pursuit of both his father's approval and his grandfather's recognition, Ta had pushed himself to the limit. Everything changed when he turned 20, when Taejun appeared. Sujin brought up Taejun, and Minyoung recognized the story immediately. It had been widely talked about at the time. She recalled how the chairman's youngest daughter had once fallen in love with an unknown volleyball player and fled to the United States, living in secrecy. Years later, after her passing, the existence of her son was revealed. Sujin explained that after her aunt's death, their grandfather finally accepted Taejun as his grandson and even gave him the family name. For Ta, who had believed himself to be the sole successor, it was a devastating shock. He had spent his entire youth ensuring he wouldn't be surpassed by Taejun, who was the same age as him. Yet, because of their father's mistake, half of the company had been handed over to Taejun. To Ta, it must have felt like his entire world had collapsed. Hearing all this, Minyoung realized she had completely misunderstood him. She had always seen him as nothing more than a self-centered crown prince. She had never imagined the weight he carried. Sujin noticed her expression and added that things had only gotten worse. Ta hadn't even been given time to process everything. He had been thrown straight into the business world at 20, under immense pressure. Minyoung quietly admitted she felt sorry for him. Relieved, Sujin grabbed her hands and said she was grateful Minyoung was by her brother's side. Smiling brightly, she asked if she could call her Unnai. Seeing her hopeful expression, Minyoung couldn't refuse. Sujin then hugged her, frustrated and emotional. She worried about her brother, saying that even when given a chance to rest, he couldn't stop working, not even in the hospital. Tearfully, she asked what she could do to help him relax. Moved, Minyoung gently comforted her and promised she would find a way. Sujin immediately brightened, calling her the best. Soon after, Assistant Kim Chun enthusiastically declared that having fun was his specialty. Sitting in the car, Ta frowned, confused about why they were suddenly heading to Gangwon-do. Minyoung calmly explained that proper rest improved recovery, productivity, and creativity, and as his assistant, she intended to ensure he fully recovered. Though Ta grumbled that resting at home would have been enough, Minyoung could tell he wasn't entirely against the idea. Smiling, she resolved to make the trip worthwhile. Kim Chun, who had always been energetic and proactive, had even arranged top-tier accommodations. When they arrived at a highly rated pension, the place looked just as beautiful as it had online. Check-in went smoothly, and the natural scenery added to the relaxing atmosphere. Kim Chun proudly showed them around, pointing out that there were 2 large rooms. Sujin frowned, confused. 4 people, but only 2 rooms. Kim Chun reassured her it was more than enough space. Ta, however, felt uneasy. The idea of sharing a room made him uncomfortable. He already suspected he wouldn't sleep well. Meanwhile, in the other room, Sujin asked Minyoung if that was all she packed. Minyoung nodded, saying she only brought what she needed. Sujin, excited, said she planned to fully enjoy the vacation and look the part. Soon, Kim Chun called for them, and the group gathered downstairs. When Ta saw Minyoung wearing a short skirt, his face turned red. Clearly flustered, he asked why she dressed like that. Sujin brushed him off. It was a vacation, after all, and teasingly praised Minyoung's figure. Embarrassed, Ta snapped at her to stop. Outside, Minyoung suggested splitting into groups to save time. She said she would go grocery shopping with Kim Chun and told Ta to explore the area. Before he could object, she waved and left. Left behind, Ta muttered that they could have gone together, feeling oddly left out. Later, walking through the forest, Minyoung asked if he liked the place. He admitted he wasn't sure. It was all unfamiliar to him. She smiled and shared childhood memories of a similar mountain near her home, where she used to play, collect insects, and run around with friends. The scent of the forest brought it all back. Ta quietly said it sounded like a beautiful memory. At one point, Minyoung spotted wild raspberries. She tasted one and said it was sweet, then offered him one. Flustered by her bright smile, he accepted, but immediately grimaced. It was sour. Laughing, she realized she had given him an unripe one. They spent more time exploring, and at one point, Ta even made her a small flower ring. Sitting beside her, he found himself feeling something unfamiliar, calm. Minyoung noticed his relaxed expression. She had never seen him like that before. She reminded him of what he once said about relaxing and living a little, thinking this trip was a good opportunity for both of them. She admitted she was happy he agreed to come. After a pause, Ta quietly said he liked it. Then it started to rain. As the downpour intensified, they ran back together. The ground grew slippery, and when Minyoung nearly fell, Ta grabbed her hand and told her to hold on. She did. Running through the rain, hand in hand, he felt strangely unsettled. They finally reached a small bus stop, soaked. Ta noticed how drenched she was and took off his outer layer, wrapping it around her. He said Kim Chun would arrive soon and told her to keep warm. Touched, she pointed out that he looked worse. His face flushed red. When she reached out to check his temperature, he quickly turned away, embarrassed, insisting he was fine. But she wasn't convinced. Just then, a car screeched to a stop. Sujin shouted at them to get in. Inside, they explained the sudden rain. As the car drove off, a speed bump caused Ta's leg to brush against Minyoung. He stiffened in embarrassment, but she didn't notice. Later, they prepared food together. Ta kept glancing at her, while she laughed and chatted with Sujin and Kim Chun. That night, he stood outside, staring at the moon, holding a withered flower. When Minyoung approached, he quickly hid it. She sat beside him, saying she hadn't realized how much she needed a day like this. After working non-stop, she finally felt like she could breathe. Ta admitted he understood, and quietly added that he worried he might be holding her back. She shook her head. She told him about her life, how she had always excelled, started working early due to her family's situation, and kept moving forward without stopping. Now, she said, she wanted to do even better as his assistant. She promised to support him until he reached the top of TK Group. Ta simply told her to do it. She smiled. Later, Minyoung stepped away to take a call. Ta unintentionally overheard. She told the caller, Hyen, that she was working. Her soft tone unsettled him. When Hyen asked what she was doing, she calmly repeated that she was working, saying she was at a workshop with a colleague. Hearing this, Ta froze. When he returned, his demeanor had changed. The warmth was gone, replaced by his usual cold, composed persona. The crown prince had returned. Minyoung approached and began briefing him again. A dinner with a CEO, a spy appointment afterward. As he listened, she noticed the shift too. Since the trip, he had become even colder than before. She wondered if everything that happened there had just been her imagination. Later, in the car, she continued her briefing. Meetings at 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. lunch with a CEO. As Ta listened, he thought about how hard she worked. And he remembered. Even on that trip, she told someone she was working,